What is up, Detroit Lions fans? It's your boy Will back with another episode of Detroit Den 313, where we talk about all things, everything Detroit Lions. Before I get into it, guys, please, if you feel moved and you love Detroit Lions content, make sure that you hit that subscribe button and do not forget the bell icon so you don't miss any of our new content, guys. That being said, today I want to talk about a few things. Just addressing everything that's been going on from training camp to the joint practices to how I feel about certain players in certain situations, as well as a little bit of a response to some of the things that are being put out there as far as uh how they feel about how joint practices went. Even Steve had put out a little bit about how he felt about joint practice. Maybe he had kind of flipped the script on how he felt about it. Instead of loving joint practice, maybe it's not the way to go. So I just want to put out a few things kind of in response to those things and give my opinion or my 2 cents on how I feel about joint practice and how I feel about where the Detroit Lions are as a football team right now, because it might not be in agreement with everyone else. So stay tuned for all of that. To start things off, though, I want to talk about joint practice. Joint practice got a little chippy, guys. Hands got thrown. Like it got a little rowdy. But to me, that happens every training camp, and it's happened every single training camp since we started playing football, right? You got a bunch of alpha males fighting for positions, trying to feed their families. That's going to be a part of it. Now, when you add another team to that, it just does nothing but just I think elevate the level of intensity. Now you're not going against guys that you have to worry about if you bang them up. Now this guy isn't going to be able to help your team. Now it's pretty much no holds bar. It's hey, I'm going to manhandle you. I'm going to basically dominate you so I can make sure I have the ability to be able to feed my family. And sometimes that gets emotional. Sometimes that gets chippy. It's to be expected. Me personally, I love it. And I love all of it from the Kirby Joseph to just a little pushing and shoving. Guys, this Detroit Lions team is just showing that they're a team that is not to be mucked with, right? They're not to be mucked with, man. Like, this is a team that takes this game of football seriously. They're taking what they're trying to do very seriously. And if you get in the way of that, they are going to go through you, right? It started off with Dan Campbell, our coach, and saying that he's ready to have a team that's biting kneecaps, and that's exactly what he has. That's exactly what we're doing. And I feel like we're exactly where we need to be. So that's kind of my 2 cents. There was a couple other things that were said as far as like they feel like there's not enough penalty or any penalty. There is. I do believe the Lions was fined $200,000. I think both teams were fined $200,000 as organizations for some of the things that went on. But these practices are not a free for all. None of this stuff is a free for all. The NFL is all about protecting that shield. So anything that is done that they feel like is detrimental to that shield, they are going to take action against, whether it's fining you or whether it's suspending you. So there's never going to be a time where these things don't matter or there is no repercussions. But in that same breath, I'm not looking for any repercussions anyways, because if you break out in a fight at our normal training camp practice without another team, I don't want the NFL coming in and policing that. That should be something that we're policing in house, right? But this is a game of football, and what gets a little bit frustrating for me is if you talk about games like hockey, guys get in a fist fight, we laugh about it, they go into the penalty box, and then we move on with the game. Like, so I don't get why this is a big deal. It's not a big deal to me. Guys get into skirmishes, guys are fighting for positions, guys are alpha males, kind of just doing what alpha males do, right? You got two gorillas out there, we're gonna figure out who's the silverback, right? Who's the apex predator, right? Bottom line. So actually, I love it, man. I love it. Football is a violent game. It's made to be physical, and I want to see who the top dog is, right? Who's going to impose their will. So, and I think that that's part of figuring that out. That's my 2 cents. That's my soapbox on that aspect of training camp and joint practices. So, moving on. When it comes to meaningful reps, I think there was a lot of meaningful reps. And when I saw the way JMO was balling, some of those plays JMO was making, love to see it. When I heard and I read about what our offensive line and our run game was able to do, I love to hear it. Right, that O line showed that they can be dominant. The run game was awesome. We made some plays in the passing game, but there was a few things that did concern me, and I'm talking minimal concern, minimal concern. I'm not freaking out, I'm not panicking, but I don't like, number one, that last year we absolutely dominated the Giants when they came to town. This year we didn't dominate them like that. That's something I don't like. We didn't dominate them every facet of the game, which is really what I would have liked to see. Now, did the Giants just get better, bringing guys in like neighbors? That could very well be so. Did Danny Dimes get another year better? That very well could be so, right? But it was just cause for concern to me because when I look at some of the stuff Detroit media was saying, and I look at some of the stuff that the Giants media was saying, it's pretty much running hand in hand that the Detroit Lions just didn't come in and dominate the Giants. And I don't look at the Giants as a team that's a caliber of the Detroit Lions right now. I feel like the Lions are here and the Giants are, they're rebuilding. They're trying to build this team back up. So I would have liked to see that the Lions come in and just completely dominate the Giants, but it is what it is. We got some good competition. Another small cause for concern. I'm seeing highlights and snippets here and there. I didn't hear a lot about Aiden Hutchinson just dominating or being a man amongst boys, right? I didn't see that either. That was something that I was looking for. I heard he had some good plays and some good reps here and there, but I didn't hear him being absolutely dominant. Now, when we start talking about Pinay Sewell, I heard Pinay Sewell just being a monster, right? So I would have liked to see a little bit more from Aiden, but we don't know what the situations were. We don't know who was out there with him. So I don't know. Obviously, DJ Reader wasn't out there. So you don't know what the rest of that D line looked like. Is it a situation of where he was getting double teamed and they were able to do all of the things that we said that they might not be able to do this year because of the guys that we signed? That could have been a situation. So it's not cause for panic. It's just something that, just a minor concern, something that I'm going to be watching and navigating through moving forward throughout the season, right? Um, but all that being said, I like where we're at as a football team. I just worry about things defensively because I was hoping to hear about that dominance. And they did say that there were times where there were a lot of Giants receivers running wide open, right? So that's something that I'll be looking forward to watching this season. I'm not panicking because we're talking about practice, as Allen Iverson said. We're talking about practice. And we have a lot of guys that are in positions to where we're still trying to figure out what they are, what they bring to the table, how we're going to utilize those things schematically. So I'm definitely not panicking because when I think about it right off the top of my head, how do you use James Houston? Right? Is he a Sam linebacker? Is he just an edge rusher? How do you use Brian Branch? Is he a nickel guy or is he going to be playing on the back end? How do you use Ife Melifonwu? Is he going to be playing nickel? Is he going to be playing on the back end? Is he going to be a situational guy where you bring packages in to highlight his strengths? How is Derek Barnes going to get used? Is he going to be rushing off for the edge, which he's shown that he has ability to do? Or is he going to be playing an outside backer because Jack Campbell has shown that he's now our Mike, right? So there's so many different things situationally that we're getting a look at in these rookies and acquired free agents, Meek, Ennis Rakestraw, right? What do they look like? And is there some rookie blown situations that were intermixed in there? So I'm definitely not panicking, but it is cause for a little bit of concern because this is a Detroit Lions team that we're looking at for this defense to take a huge step forward, right? We're looking for a defense to go out there, and some people are dropping them already and as a top 5 defense. So if you got top 5 uh, potential, or if you got top 5 aspirations, then we have to be dominating teams like the New York Giants. That's just the bottom line, because if you're going to compete with teams like the Kansas City Chiefs, you should be dominating teams like the New York Giants, period. Right? So I don't think there's any argument for that. So that's just kind of where I'm at from that aspect of it. But all that said, I'm happy that we got out of there relatively healthy. I do know that Emmanuel Mosley went out with a torn pec, but we look at what CJ Gardner-Johnson did last year. He was able to make it back, and that was in, I think, week two. Week 2, he tore his pec, and he was able to make it back for the playoffs. So we haven't even started our season yet. So maybe Emmanuel Mosley is a guy that can make it back towards the end of this season, and he can help this team out. I'm rooting for him, and I hope that's how this thing ends up going. He was having an awesome camp from everything that I've read and everything that the players have been saying. So maybe he's a guy that helps us out on the back end, but I do worry because I felt like when CJ Gardner Johnson came back, I felt like it kind of disrupted the steps forward that Ife Melifonwu took, and it kind of made things a little bit weird on the back end. So I don't want to see that aspect of things, but I am cheering for Emmanuel Mosley nonetheless. So hopefully he can make it back and he can get some meaningful reps and he can just continue to feed his family, man. He's a guy that was on a 1-year deal. So I'm cheering for you, Emmanuel Mosley. Get well and hopefully um there's either a role found for you here or just somewhere in the NFL, man, because you've been working too hard not to reap the benefits of the hard work that you've been putting in. Um, let's get into preseason, man. These preseason games, and just some of my feelings on practice, man. Because I sit in a different place, because being a part of these things, coaching these things, getting to be around some of the coaches that coach in the NFL or coach in some of these major colleges from Alabama to Pittsburgh to I've got a chance Virginia Tech, Miami. I've got an opportunity to talk to a lot of these coaches, from head coaches to position coaches, and then some of the D2 guys. Uh Practice and scrimmages or preseason games are your opportunities to try things, to get a look at guys. So don't think that we're going to find answers to regular season problems in the preseason. That's not what that's about, right? It's about figuring out schematically some things that may or may not work that you want to just get a look at, and getting players opportunities to get reps that could potentially help you throughout this season, or finding out that maybe they can't help you, right? But it's not about to figure out if Jared Goff is any good, or if Aiden Hutchinson is going to take a huge step forward, or really what Broderick Martin is, or even a guy who had a great offseason and he's had a great training camp in Levi Onwuzurike. You don't find out what the type of regular season that Levi Onwuzurike is going to have by the preseason, right? Those are things. Now, you might see some potentials, you might see some traits, but we don't solve those problems, right? We get people reps, we get people opportunities. Preseason is just a glorified organized practice. That's it. So, guys, we got to pump the brakes on some of these things where guys get a few interceptions, guys get a few touchdowns. We're like, oh my gosh, they're going to be this, they're going to be that, right? The things that I would caution you to pay more attention to is how the other players are talking about certain guys. Like, so these guys that got to guard J-Mo at practice, how are they talking about him, right? How guys are looking as far as how they've prepared their bodies, right? So did they prepare their body for a great season? Aleem McNeil last year, right? Those are like some of the things that can give you an early look at guys. What's guys' durability looking like through camp? Those are things like Levi Onwuzurike, not his play through camp, but the fact that he's been able to feel good and execute day in and day out. That excites me, right? But to the contrary, when you're talking about guys like Davenport, he's a guy that's already talked about. He's got that nagging ankle injury and some things that are still going on. Now, he said it's not stopping him. Yeah, maybe it didn't stop you through camp. Maybe it hasn't stopped you early. But if it's something that's bothering you now in week 15, 16, 17, going into the playoff run, what is it going to be feeling like if you're starting the season with it nagging you? So those are things let's learn how to read in between the lines and just start to understand what we really need to be worried about. In my opinion, that's where I sit. So guys, feel free. I'm always up for a debate. Please, if you feel like I'm wrong, if you feel like maybe I should be looking at this thing differently, please put it in the comments. I'm always down to talk about it. Lastly, Hendon Hooker through this preseason. I'm interested to see what he looks like. There's been some highs and there's been some lows throughout training camp and throughout joint practices. So I'm interested to see what he looks like in a game situation. Now, if he gets out here and he lights it up, I'm not going to say, oh my God, he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. He's going to be looking at some vanilla defenses. He's going to be looking at some second teamers or some guys that are just rookies and they're just getting a look at, right, that don't have a lot of experience. But I am looking to see if he can get out there and execute, right? And it'll be something that just like, hey, I notch it as something to pay attention to either way. And if he looks terrible, I'm not going to be looking to throw him in the garbage can and throw him to the wolves, right? He's got We got Jared Goff under contract. He's got time to develop, but it is something that I'm interested to see. Same thing with Sione Vaki. The same way with these rookies, Ennis Rakestraw, Terry and Arnold. I am interested to see what these guys look like moving forward because uh, these are guys that could have a long future and could be the guys that continue to keep this thing rolling after we move past some of the guys that we have, maybe even guys like Jared Goff, because I'm looking at this team being good for a decade, not right now. So, guys, leave it in the comments. Let me know how you're feeling about where we are with the Detroit Lions, how you feel about everything that I've talked about from the joint practices to training camp. And I'll be back with another episode. Peace.